Dear Green friends, after this very thorough and thoughtful introduction, I want to focus on just one part of the topic, which is climate change and the economy. Per Garton yesterday reminded us that in our programs, when we Greens put blame on who would be responsible for the state of the world, we name capitalism or neoliberalism or international corporations or growth as such. Whatever we call it, we should take note that an unsuspected author, the former chief economist of the World Bank, Andy Stern, wrote roughly a year and a half ago that climate change is the biggest market failure of human history. We have preciously little time to avoid what has just been described as a threatening tipping point. Otherwise, 100 years from now, there may not be Amsterdam or New York or Shanghai. Andy Stern described in his now famous review that it would take 1% of global GDP to invest in climate policy to avoid that fateful future and to keep climate change below +2 degrees centigrade. He also noted that if we fail to accomplish that, it might cost up to 20% of global GDP to pay for the destruction that would result from that. Now, I must grant that Andy Stern is an economist, and I'm not sure we Greens would model the plight of several 100 million climate refugees in economic terms. But for economists, that number, I think, is very impressive. So today, we're faced with a question whether we can manage to do that. Technologically, we have everything we need to reduce CO2 emissions by 30 to 40% by the year 2020 in the rich countries of this world. The industrialized countries have to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by much more, though, by 2050, at least 80 to 90%. The poorest third of the global population do not contribute more than 5% to the global greenhouse gas emissions. So the responsibility for the major part falls on the industrialized nations. But I think it's obvious that there's still a huge gap, a long way between what we can do today and what we have to be able to do if we want to achieve that well-defined goal. Now, every mode of production and every civilization is defined to a large degree by its energy sources and its energy consumption. We live in the fossil age, so to speak. I think one core target, one core goal for the Greens globally should be to leave this fossil age and to enter the solar age, to put a goal that would be to live off 100% renewable energies. And to get there, we have to do three things at the same time. We have to support the development of renewables, we have to increase energy efficiency, and we have to look to energy conservation. This needs technological as well as social innovations. Now, of course, we have to ask ourselves whether we are sure that we can change the course of economic development. More specifically, does it make sense to try to reach sustainability within the confines of a market economy? I believe that this kind of challenge that we're facing up to is not a completely unheard of kind of challenge. Structurally, it's similar to the experience of the trade union movement and the working class movement to try to rein in the destructive forces of capitalism. Only that this environmental challenge is much deeper, it's much more profound, much more fundamental. We have to change the patterns of production and consumption within global, not only national confines. I think our common approach can only be that we will never, as Greens, accept that the market dictates its law to society. Rather more, it should be the other way around, that society sets laws to rein in the economic processes and to make sure that globally, as well as continentally and nationally and locally, we are able to develop what has been rightly termed sustainable development. We need a strong environmental framework, legal framework for the economy to get there. There are examples like cap and trade for CO2 emissions, carbon tax, energy efficiency standards, renewable standards, feed-in tariffs, and others. I am convinced that we can decouple economic development from the consumption of natural resources and of fossil fuels and from the greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, we are up against vested interests and established lobbies, and most of them are much stronger in the industrialized countries than our forces are so far. But we should not overlook the fact that we are gaining new allies. Experience shows that we can have new allies also from the economic sector. There's an increasing economic sector that has been termed the business of green. It includes small and medium-sized enterprises, it includes craftsmen, it includes young innovators, it includes unions that know that going for green is also positive from the job aspect. We in our country, for instance, have shown that by fostering fossil fuels, we were able to create a whole new renewables industry with 250,000 new jobs. Traditionally, the pride of Germany would have been machine building and automobiles. Within the next 10 years, environmental industry in our country will overtake those two sectors job-wise. So there are people that are putting their hopes where ours are. I'm sure that without transforming our economies, we will not be successful in fighting global warming. To borrow a phrase from Bill Clinton, it's the environmental economy, stupid. To be able to set the necessary framework, we must be politically strong, because it needs democracy to get there and to lead our societies towards a new perspective. I say, if there would be an economy that can sustain our species and save the planet, it must be green. Thank you.